Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a special guest, a special interview with Miss Tracie Chandler. Tracie, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good in you.
I'm
And thank
good.
you for asking me and thank you for inviting me onto your platform.
Yeah, I thank you so much for being here. Now, today we got a really touchy and very serious topic. We're going to be talking about spousal abuse. Okay, so one, can you give me some background information on yourself? And you can kind of go right into your story of how you became a part of a spousal abuse. Excuse me.
Well, I can begin again about myself. It started at an early age. I would say maybe a age of 14.
Okay.
I yes, the baby of the family. Growing up as six siblings, I'm the baby. I'm make me is seven. So make a
Okay.
long story short, that when my dad passed away, and looking for love in all the wrong places, when
Okay.
I searching for love and I found it in the wrong place. And
Hmm.
that's where the beginning of my story began when I met a young man. He was 21, 14. Sometimes people may say back then, years ago, age didn't matter.
Right.
But like I say, looking for that dad figure, and that's the roller coaster ride that took me for many years in the abuse that I suffered. I at the present time I didn't want to be in a relationship with anyone. I just was looking for a dad, not with a
Hmm.
man. And he was very controlling, telling me that I should not obey my mom, and that was a no. Like not to
Right.
obey my mom.
Hmm.
And when he started that, I was tossed between the two of my mom and this young man.
Right.
My mom, she was the type, she didn't, she asked question later. She'll beat you and ask question later.
And that's right. That's right.
Right,
Hmm.
right.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to be taking the behind whooping from her, and didn't want to take the behind whooping from him. It was like up and down with that situation with him coming into my life. Very
Okay.
confused young lady.
Okay. So basically, it kind of starts with uh, needing to have a positive male influence.
Yes,
So without that, then that's where you kind of fall into looking for that male influence and basically finding it in the wrong places.
exactly.
Okay, so when this started, was it um, subtle or was this guy just controlling? Excuse me. Was he just controlling right from the
Uh,
beginning?
Actually, it started out pleasant, like a loving person. Like
Right.
I'm gonna be there. I really care for you, and it's soft, smooth as butter coming.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted to believe that, and I'm like, Dad, this is what I'm looking for.
Right.
Someone that care. Then
Mm-hmm.
when he came in so smooth like butter, believing the words, the sounds, then later on, that's when the abuse took place. It didn't happen right then and there. It just came subtle. Then he started introducing me to uh, all kinds of like drugs and everything from that point on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's basically to have that control, to
Right.
make sure he has that control. Hmm.
Right.
Hmm. So for okay, there were a lot of red flags. Okay, but the fact of wanting to be loved, needing to be loved, and finally having somebody who's saying the right things, not necessarily doing them, but saying the right things is really what kind of bonds you. It keeps you in because you're looking for that love that you're missing.
Exactly. Looking for the love that I'm missing because all of my siblings were older than I. My mom also, went to work. I was a latchkey kid. Just looking for that love, looking for that bond that I once known from my dad.
Right.
In the home, I knew a dad was supposed to be in the home, but I wasn't getting. I know my mom loved me. I know my siblings, they love me. But sometimes when you find that person, thinking that person gonna show you something different. And that's
Uh-huh.
what I was looking for, something different. I was looking for that recipe, like you look that recipe and you gonna cook up something and you thinking it's nice, it's gonna be good on the other side. But once
Right.
you get finished with that recipe, you like, oh, I messed up on the recipe. And what
Right.
a young girl also know about the red flags because I wasn't taught about red flags either. I
Uh-huh.
wasn't, I didn't know anything about what signs to look for.
Right.
I just
Right.
a young man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's really interesting because see, I'm the youngest of five, and
Okay.
sometimes you don't get to speak. It's almost like everybody is telling you what to do because everybody else is older. So you sometimes you don't get a chance to really speak out and to ask the questions, and you have to make yourself really aware of red flags because not just men, I mean young boys, males, they're gonna tell you what you want to hear. They're
Right.
gonna tell you what you want to hear, and then they normally are gonna have an agenda. So once you start believing in what they're saying, then they start to isolate you. They start to isolate you, and I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened. And when you think you're in love, but you're not really sure what love is or what it should be, then you kind of have to go through a process of
Mm-hmm.
finding what real love is, but at the same time, you're not, you don't have real love and don't realize it.
Right.
So how many years or how long did it take before you started to realize that, hey, this is not really what I wanted?
It took me way into my 20s because actually I ended up marrying him when I was 18.
Okay.
And I didn't want to marry him. And I know my mom had such high hopes for me.
Mm-hmm.
And, I got everything I wanted as a child.
Right.
But it was like something was still missing in my
Uh-huh.
life, like looking for that dad or whatever I was looking for. And once I got into my 20s and I realized, not all the way fully realized that this is something that I don't want, but I knew something in me saying, you don't need this guy, you don't need this guy. This guy is wasting your time. It was like I had my dreams and goals was writing, writing like books, scripts for movies. As a young kid, but I
Right.
felt like I lost all of those dreams and goals with him
Mm-hmm.
because he was bringing me down so far to I felt like I didn't know how to get out of it. It was like it was a maze. I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna get out of that circle. Then once he kept putting me, telling me to take drugs, telling me to take, crack cocaine. That's the era when crack cocaine came out.
Okay.
Then I ended up getting sick. I had cardiac arrest when I was like 24 years old.
Okay.
I didn't think I was gonna make it,
Mm.
and I was in the hospital. It might sound so the story is sad, but kind of some funniness in it because when I'm laying in intensive care, waking up and seeing my mother in intensive care fighting this guy, hitting my ex-husband with with her pocketbook, my hospital bed going on, like moving
Right.
back and forth,
Right.
and I'm like, I've got tools all around me,
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out what's going on here.
Right.
And at that breaking point, when I was laying there in intensive care, I was like, I'm hurting myself. I'm hurting my mom. I
Uh-huh.
had children by this man also. And I'm like, I got two small children. And I'm
Right.
like, Lord, help me how to get out of it. I'm laying in intensive care, just one on one, but just me and the Lord, just me and
Uh-huh.
him.
Right.
Like, help me how to get out of this because I didn't know how to get out of it, but
Mm-hmm.
he knew how to get me out of it.
Right.
So that's how it ended up breaking to get out of it. Then once I got out the situation, once I got out the hospital and recovered from the cardio arrest, and I look back, in my life at that time, he tried to come back to say, well, let me be a better father, let me be a better husband, and all this stuff. So I did take him back, but then I was like, no, this is too much. It was like back and forth, I'm hiding my children food because he would eat, come and eat up all the food. I'm hiding food so my
Right.
children can eat. And I said, you know what, this is the last straw. I was
Mm-hmm.
a minute in the hospital, almost lost my life. Then when you come out there, special with my children, you taking them food from their mouths.
Right.
That
Right.
was the last straw too, till I said I can't look back no more. I
Mm-hmm.
just couldn't go back and endure the pain and the heartache, um, going back and forth with him. But how he really left me alone, I ended up meeting another guy that I really wasn't in love with because I'm looking for someone to protect me.
Right.
And which my brothers and them, they didn't really I don't know what was the case, what was the scenario about that with the situation with my brothers, but I love them, like I said. I don't understand it. I guess they say, well, she can make her own decisions, she doing this, but little did they know I was crying for help. Somebody help me.
Right. Right.
And I
They
didn't know
didn't.
how to tell them.
Yeah, they didn't see the signs, the cry for
Right.
help. Right.
Well, they didn't see the signs, but he, like I said, back with this young man was threatening, saying if I left him, he was gonna kill my mom. In the back of my
Mm-hmm.
mind, I'm thinking how to get out of this. If you gonna hurt my mom, or he threatened to say, he could should have killed me a long time ago.
Mm.
And that point on, it just I don't know. I was saying to my to myself how I let my life get like this. What did Once I got
Right.
older, and I didn't realize I was in that. I was in these spider webs. He had to
Uh-huh.
take them down. I didn't realize it was just so painful, so bad. You
Mm-hmm.
know, from that
And
situation I was in.
yeah, and they never show you a way out. They only show you a way in. Never.
Yes,
Never show you a
right,
way out. Right.
right,
And it takes a lot of times, it takes something really traumatic to make you come to realize that this is not what you expect, that this is not what you want, and you can't continue to go on like that.
right.
Um, Being in the hospital I know that was a wake up call. Just like you
Oh
said.
yes,
Yeah, yeah, because being in the hospital, intensive care doesn't equal love no kind of way. It
right.
doesn't equal love. So, um, and that was like a 30-year process.
Yes, it was a long process to even recover from that from him. And only like I said again, how he left me alone, I end up it was a guy that in the neighborhood, did like me, but I end up dating him. When I dated him, that's only how my children dad left me alone when I dated this young man. And then we end up getting married, which my mom was telling me not to get married, after I got the divorce, like 2 years after
Right.
I divorced my children's dad. She said, well, he seemed nice, the second guy, but not to get married. But I'm like, nobody understand. And like I was like paranoid, thinking that this the children dad gonna find me or hurt me. I'm looking for somebody to be in that place. So also with my children, because I say I grew up without my dad, number
Mm-hmm.
one, and I wanted them so bad to have a dad.
Right.
Two, I was afraid, still afraid for my life because I never lived alone. I never ever lived alone. And
Okay.
then this guy came, and when my mom told me again not to marry him, and then I end up marrying the guy, the second guy. So when I married the second guy, that he had a drug problem, but I never went back to drugs. He never enforced drugs on me. It was just like he'd be gone for days or whatever. I stayed in the marriage 22 years trying to get counseling, got
Okay.
me together and everything. He had got good jobs as a meat cutter, and I was a homemaker trying to be able to, keep the house up like a wife's supposed to be, doing home. So when
Right.
that ended up happening, finding out that he had a drug problem, and he ended up was going to different little jobs, losing good jobs, going to another job, and this and that. And I'm like, what in
Uh-huh.
the world I did get myself into?
Right. Right.
Right.
And
So
that is so, I mean, living with a person on drugs is really, really difficult because
yeah,
it gets to a point where you don't know what they're gonna do. You
no,
know, just like you said, they're gone for 3 or 4 days, you know what I mean? They come home and then before you know it, they're gone again. Or and it becomes chaos. It becomes a chaotic life.
right.
So yeah, yeah. And you can't really help them. They have to help themselves. And
No.
until they decide to help themselves, it's really nothing that you can do.
It was nothing I can do at all. And I think I was 26 when I married him. I was 26 and
Okay.
he was like 33.
Right.
And when we got together, he had a daughter already by someone, that they broke up. He never been married. And I was his first wife. And I
Uh,
had children by the guy that I met when I was 14.
right.
So putting together at in the blended family, he didn't ever treat my kids bad or anything like that, but it's just the situation living in seeing their dad going through drug abuse and how their dad would abuse me. Then they seeing this other young man coming in my life I get married to, till they seen like, hey, go on. Where they'll wake up like, where's, I don't want to say
Yeah.
his name. Where's so
Uh-huh.
I'm like, oh, he'll be back. He'll be back. But
Right.
then they would look at me and my children, and they would look, and I just when he'll come home, I'll have dinner cooked,
Uh-huh.
and still did what a wife's supposed to do until I end up telling one friend of mine about the situation who went to church. Her and I went to church. She said, you're gonna either have to she said you're gonna have to either what are you gonna do, she said I don't want to interfere in marriages.
Yeah.
She said that you can't keep living like this. She said you like you be nervous, and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
so she said, well, you're a hell of a woman. You putting up with all that. You putting up. And I said, well, it's going to be okay. Because I was believing in God that he was going to get himself together. I
Yeah.
was praying, fasting, and doing what a wife's supposed to do.
Right.
Then it got to a point that I couldn't take it no more because he ended up getting treatment, going into treatment. But when he got out of treatment, it was back to same roller coaster,
Mm-hmm.
losing jobs. I got evicted out of home. We lived in like nice, prestigious homes, and then I'm living like like I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
This is the
Right.
early part of the 90s, and
Uh-huh.
back then meat cutters made a lot of money.
They
You
made
thinking
money.
that right? You thinking that I'm a bum or something? I'm looking.
Right.
I'm
Right.
scraping for money and this, and he messed up all the money. And I said, how long I'm gonna live through this? But
Right.
actually, I stayed with him 22 years, and then after those 22 years, I had to really get out the situation because it was
Mm-hmm.
unhealthy. unhealthy.
Okay.
Very.
So that was a major roller coaster ride in both relationships. And
Yes.
yeah, it's at some point someone has to break the cycle. Glad it was
Yeah.
you. Yeah, you have to break the cycle because as you have kids growing up in that environment, uh, even though it's not normal to them, a lot of times
Right.
they fall into the same environment.
Right.
A lot of times. So I'm going to ask you this: what advice would you have to give to young women, young girls, to be able to avoid situations like this?
Um, First of all, we're as lazy, like the Bible say, we're the weaker vessel, number
Right.
one. So when someone come in our life, somebody always may tell us, or any blow Joe say, "Well, I'm a good guy. I'm gonna do right by you." First of all, the young lady have to be able, if she have a dad or a
Yes.
brother that's
Yes.
interested in her life, that's still in her life.
Right.
A man know a man. A
Yes.
man, to be able to say, Dad, this such and such man, young guy, let the dad meet him and the parents. Don't
Mm-hmm.
sneak off with this guy, because when the young girls they thinking they sneaking and creeping, that comes back to bite you in the rear end, in the behind.
Yes, it does. It does. um,
And-
and so, yeah, the father figure is very, very important. It is
right.
very important. And um, like you said, I have girls, but I know
Hmm.
how I was. So I had to teach girls, my daughters, what to look for, at
Right.
different ages, what to look for,
Right.
because guys are going to say what they need to say. You know, if you tell a guy that you like dogs, he'll bring you a puppy. But that's all he's
Right.
gonna bring. He's not gonna bring a house. He's not gonna bring food. He's just gonna bring you the puppy, and then it's up to
Right.
you to take care of it. You know, and
Exactly.
yeah, I keep an open relationship. With my kids. It's you can tell me whatever you want to tell me. One thing for sure, you're gonna get the truth. You may not want to hear it, but you're gonna get the truth. Yeah.
Right. Right. That
So
is so true. Go.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
and you have to, and as a man, I think that's you just have to do that to save women. To save women, and like in your case, a lot of it starts when they're really young. 14 is really young.
Right.
To start having to deal with those types of things, and then one thing leads right to another. So
Exactly.
I just kind of had to put that in there, but um, yeah, you can. Do you know of any programs and stuff that can help the young ladies?
Actually, right now, I'm working on some programs also to help young ladies. That's why I also, what I years ago, that I my schedule is so crazy, but years ago I used to be able to, once I got out of the situation, getting me together, because I can't help nobody till I get me.
Exactly.
Get that. If I'm drowning, I have to be able to get me afloat.
Yeah, exactly.
I used to help young women in shelters, and young ladies used to come to me and confide in, different things that they endure or whatever the situation may be. But I can say too that they can also find out, like, do shelters or something like that. But sometimes the shelters, they can only do so much, but that's what I'm currently working on, to be able to help women, young girls,
Right.
to be able to know the signs, what to recognize, what to
Hmm.
do when you see this guy want to get with you. And another thing that young ladies don't, I don't mean to veer off the conversation, that this guy a couple years ago, he had walked, he was my driver. When he was open the door, he would say, "Yeah, I looking for some lady and everything, and my girl saying that I be cheating this and that. So I end up saying it to the young man, and this is what I want to say to all people, whether they're young or old. And I said, well, I told the young man, I said, do you have a toothbrush? He said, yeah. And I said, if you have a toothbrush, would you want to stick your toothbrush in everybody's mouth?
Mm,
He said, no. I said,
right.
that's what with sex with men or women they want to use their their private parts
Right.
to everybody like it's a toothbrush. It's not a I mean, your toothbrush is sacred.
Yes. Yeah.
And then these young girls of women old and young, you don't want to have be going sticking here, you brushing I mean, I'm just using toothbrush for example.
Right. Right.
Because people think, oh, it's okay to just have sex, okay, just casual sex. But why not have a wife? Why not have a woman have a husband? And it's too much going on out here to we are not setting good example for our young ones that's coming before us because the young ones need that. And I look at in our black communities that I do see is more divorce rate, more this, more that. And I say, sometimes the young people, they be like, they look at you and say, well, you a phony, you doing this and doing that. Who's standing up to be able to tell our young children? And young children is so pure and they can
Yes.
recognize a phony.
Uh-huh.
They can
That's right.
recognize a phony that's in their life. And they
Mm-hmm.
saying, this woman doing this, so they feel, okay, this woman, she shaking her butt, she getting this, she can get this man. And then the
Yeah.
young man, he's saying, well, I learned from the old school guy. He said, well, you just played a woman.
Uh-huh. Right.
No, and it's like, what's wrong with our society? What's wrong with our black community come together and say, you know what? We can stop the disease in our community. We can stop with this our young boys and young girls to be able
Exactly.
to have an example for them. No one
Mm-hmm.
have an example for them.
Right. And you have to know your worth.
Right,
And that's what needs to be taught. Teach kids to know their worth
right. They
because
don't know their worth.
they don't know their worth. Right. Right. Okay. I really thank you for taking your time to come and talk
You,
to me today. Um, this has been a very interesting conversation. I'd like for you to come back and let's talk some more. At a different date. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Tracie Chandler. It's been a pleasure. It's been a really, really good experience for me. The topic is what everybody needs to hear, and age doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It happens to young. It happens to old. Um, and that's what people really need to hear. So I'd like to bring you back at a later date, and we can just kind of openly discuss a little more. Okay.
sure. That would
All
be
right.
awesome to be able
Okay.
to share in a light on everything. I thank you so much, brother, to welcome me to your platform, and I'm looking so forward to coming back.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies
You're
and
welcome.
gentlemen. Tracie Chandler.